The story of how the United States became the world's economic superpower does not begin with wealth, power, military strength, or even political unity. It begins in a world ruled by empires older than America could imagine: Britain, France, Spain, the Qing dynasty, the Ottomans, nations with centuries of history behind them, and control over global trade networks the Americans could only dream of. When the United States declared independence in 1776, it was not a rising giant. It was a fragile experiment surrounded by giants. A nation without an army strong enough to defend itself, without a navy to protect its trade routes, without an industrial engine to produce goods, and without a currency trusted outside its borders. The idea that this young, rural republic would one day dominate the world was unthinkable. And yet, history was quietly setting the stage. America's rise begins with something simple: land. Vast amounts of fertile, resource-rich land, stretching across a continent. Rivers large enough to power machines. Forests deep enough to supply ships, houses, and industries for centuries. Farmland so fertile it could feed millions. Beneath the soil were minerals, coal, iron, and later, oil. No nation on Earth possessed so much natural wealth untouched and ready for development. But resources alone don't create an economic superpower. What mattered was what Americans did with it. In the early 1800s, Americans embraced a cultural belief that would shape their destiny. The idea that progress was not just possible, but inevitable. They believed technology could conquer distance, machinery could amplify human power, and ambition could rewrite the future. As Europe was diving into endless wars, Napoleon, revolutions, conflicts for colonies, the United States was building. Canals like the Erie Canal cut through wilderness and connected the interior to the oceans. Railroads stitched together regions that had once been isolated. Telegraph wires allowed ideas to travel faster than any army. While old empires fought over territory, America built the infrastructure that would become the backbone of the world's largest economy. By the mid-1800s, the United States was experiencing a transformation no one expected. Factories multiplied. Immigrants poured in, bringing labor, skills, and innovation. Cities boomed. Entrepreneurs rose from poverty to create industries that would change the world. Men like Vanderbilt, Carnegie, Rockefeller, and J.P. Morgan weren't just businessmen, they were empire builders whose creations powered the nation's climb to the global summit. Steel, oil, electricity, railroads, banking, all accelerated America's ascent. But the real turning point came from something far more brutal. The American Civil War, as destructive as it was, forced the country to modernize. The war required industry, logistics, railroads, and mass production on a scale never seen before. When the war ended, the country emerged more industrial, more unified, and more determined. While Europe struggled with old monarchies and colonial conflicts, America charged into the industrial age at full speed. By 1880, the United States produced more steel than Britain. By 1890, more coal than Germany. By 1900, it had become the largest economy in the world, without even trying to dominate others. The next phase of America's rise came not from factories, but from innovation. The American culture of invention exploded. The telephone, the light bulb, the airplane, mass production techniques, assembly lines. America became the global center of creativity. And while Europe remained chained to its ancient structures, rigid class systems, and imperial conflicts, the United States became the land where ideas could rise faster than anywhere else. But the moment the United States truly stepped onto the world stage was World War I. When Europe went to war in 1914, the continent collapsed into madness. Millions died, empires crumbled, and economies fell apart. The United States, isolated by oceans, watched from a distance, and something remarkable happened. The world began buying American. Europe needed food, weapons, materials, loans, everything. Bankers in New York began replacing bankers in London. American factories ran day and night. When the war ended, Europe was devastated. The United States, for the first time in its history, became the world's largest creditor nation. But America wasn't ready to lead the world yet. It turned inward during the 1920s, chasing wealth, pleasure, and rapid technological progress. Automobiles filled the streets. Radios connected millions. Skyscrapers touched the clouds. The dollar grew influential, but America still didn't accept its role as a true superpower. Then came the Great Depression. The American economy collapsed, millions lost their jobs, and the entire global financial system began to tear apart. For a moment, it looked as if the United States would not dominate the world. It would simply crumble like the empires before it. But what happened next shaped the future. President Franklin Roosevelt's New Deal stabilized the economy and rebuilt industries. And while America recovered, the world plunged again into war. World War II became the single greatest turning point in America's rise. When Europe and Asia lay in ruins, London bombed, Paris occupied, Berlin destroyed, Tokyo burned, American factories were untouched. American farmland was untouched. American infrastructure was untouched. And American workers were producing weapons, planes, ships, machinery, radios, trucks, steel, more than the rest of the world combined. By 1945, the United States was manufacturing 50% of the world's goods. This dominance had never been seen before in human history. The dollar was backed by more gold than any nation on Earth. The U.S. Navy controlled the oceans. American technology outpaced every rival, and when the dust settled, only two superpowers remained: the United States and the Soviet Union. But economically, there was no competition. Europe needed money to rebuild. Japan needed money to rebuild. The United States stepped in with the Marshall Plan, a financial aid program that rebuilt entire nations on American terms. American banks, American corporations, American technology, and American trade networks spread into every corner of the recovering world. And along with them came the system that would define the modern age: the U.S.-led global financial order. The dollar became the currency of trust, stability, and international trade. The United States built a network of alliances designed to stabilize markets, open trade routes, and integrate nations into a system dominated by American industry and finance. And while the Soviet Union tried to challenge the U.S. militarily, it simply could not compete economically. The Soviet system lacked innovation, efficiency, capital, and global market reach. By the 1970s, America faced a new challenge. The dollar was too dominant, and the gold reserves too low to support the Bretton Woods system. President Nixon's decision to end the gold standard created the modern floating currency era. Many expected the dollar to collapse. Instead, something extraordinary happened. The world continued using it anyway. Oil was priced in dollars. Global trade was priced in dollars. International banking ran through the dollar. America had something no other nation had: a currency the world trusted, even without gold. Throughout the late 20th century, America doubled down on its strengths: innovation, technology, finance, and global influence. Silicon Valley rose from small garages and university labs to transform the entire planet. Microchips, computers, the internet, smartphones, Almost every major modern technological revolution was born in America. And behind this innovation stood the American financial system, pouring capital into ideas that were too risky for any other nation to fund. At the same time, the U.S. military secured the world's sea lanes, shipping routes, and global trade networks. Companies could trade across oceans because American aircraft carriers made it safe. Nations invested in the dollar because they trusted the stability created by American institutions. By the year 2000, the United States was not just an economic superpower, it was the center of the global economy. And even when the 2008 financial crisis nearly shattered the system, the world once again rushed into dollars, proving its unmatched dominance. And now, the world is watching a new chapter unfold. China rises, Europe struggles with unity, Russia faces sanctions, and technology transforms everything again. And yet, the United States still holds the world's largest economy, most powerful currency, strongest financial markets, deepest innovation ecosystem, and critical global influence. The story of America's economic rise is not a story of luck. It is a story of timing, resources, conflict, innovation, immigration, capitalism, and the ability to reinvent itself during every major crisis. While old empires collapsed under the weight of tradition and rigidity, America thrived by embracing change. Every failure became a lesson. Every crisis became a catalyst. Every challenge became an opportunity for reinvention. From a weak colony to the engine of global capitalism, from a rural frontier to the financial heart of the world, from a nation without a currency to the issuer of the global reserve, from a divided union to the center of global trade, innovation, and finance. This is how the United States became the world's economic superpower, not by age, not by ancient legacy, but by becoming the most adaptable nation the world has ever seen. And the question now is not whether America will decline or remain dominant. The real question is simple. Who can challenge a nation that keeps reinventing itself every time the world changes? Because the true strength of the United States